freaking first cut. Golly. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Memorial Tournament. And joining me to break it all down, Sia Nejad is here. Sia, what up?
Rick, what is up? I am so excited to break down the Memorial. I hope you can see it. I'm legitimately excited. I can't wait to get the show started.
Stacked field, great tournament, lots of changes, so plenty to discuss. And rounding out our group for today, it's Greg DuCharme. Greg, good to see you, bud.
Hey, good to see you too. I hope everybody's having a great Memorial Day, an important day for me, no doubt about it. So I'm very excited. I'm sorry, Jacob, if I'm dating the show already, but we have a tendency to do that, the three of us. We like to date live, it right away. Okay. So yeah, Memorial Day. I got the red, white, and blue on, American flag belt underneath that I don't think I need to show you, but yeah, it's a great day. I'm very excited about it.
And nothing more American than that Madonna mic that you are rocking right now, my friends. Congratulations.
Well, and also, I got to say, Rick, the T-shirt, we can't quite see the full T-shirt, but I think on there, yeah, there you go. I just wanted to say, I'm definitely ordering one of each. My wife is Team Brooks.
Yeah. It's splitting households, you know? I mean, it's this was all my wife's doing. She was actually out of town for a couple of days, and these came in the mail, and I'm like, what? Who sent us these? And she's like, no, I made them up and had them sent in. I'm like,
they're great.
I've never loved you more than this moment right now.
It's beautiful. What is this? This is like there's a show that your wife probably watched or watches. I know mine did, with like vampires and werewolves, right? What is that? Is that where this comes from? Team Werewolf, Team Vampire?
Yes. Twilight.
It's like a famous Twilight.
Team Edward, and who's the other guy?
Team Jacob.
Oh, Team Jacob. There you go.
There you go. That's where I think she, or maybe that whole thing started there. I think. I don't know. But it's a brilliant idea. I love it. I'm ordering two, likely today.
Love it. While you're watching the stream, while you're listening to the podcast version, don't be afraid. Hit that like button on YouTube. Comment with who you think's going to win this week. Leave a 5-star rating and review, all that good stuff. And Sia, you've probably seen it all over social media this week, but Floyd Money Mayweather will be fighting viral star Logan Paul this Sunday on Showtime, and there is only one place to get all your coverage for this carnival boxing match, the Morning Combat Podcast. Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas will be on site in Miami all week long to provide you with everything you need leading up to the fight. Follow Morning Combat wherever you listen to podcasts to get all the preview content you need for this crazy event. That you're a fan of this, aren't you, Sia?
Obviously, I got to catch that Morning Combat Podcast though. And by the way, I'm just a few miles from that fight, so I'm going to head down there. I'm going to see what magic I can make. Maybe get involved in that fight somehow. We'll see.
There you go.
That was much better this week.
Much better.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. So I almost interrupted myself just to I'm glad you didn't ask me about soccer. That's all.
Yeah, we love all the promos. And we love golf. That is actually true. We do very much love golf, and we've got a banger this week, gentlemen. It's the Memorial. It is a staple on the schedule. It garners an excellent field. I mean, where do you want to start, Greg? You want to start with the field or the course? What do you want to do?
I think we start with the course, and then we go into field, and then we'll go into players. So I think that makes a ton of sense. So the golf course.
Right, here.
Go ahead, Rick.
Let's do it. No, okay, here it is. It's Muirfield Village. It's a par 72, but it's gone through quite a bit of renovations, a tiny little redesign on some of these green complexes. Essentially, they've spent the last 10 or 11 months getting this course in shape for this week. And we talked about it a little bit on the first look preview pod, Greg, where a lot of these holes were touched. Every single bunker has been touched. There's some holes like number 15 that have bigger changes than others, but this is going to be at least a slightly different version of this event than we have seen in years past.
Yeah, a couple of things that I find really cool about it. I like the addition of the trees. 140 trees they've added to the golf course. That's a significant amount over the course of it's basically, if you say the par threes, it doesn't really have much of an effect. I mean, you're almost talking about 10 trees per hole, which is pretty cool. I think that's good for a golf course like this. Makes it a little more makes driving accuracy a little bit more important, which I think is great. Then the other thing that will affect driving accuracy is new greens. And when you have new greens, even if they didn't change any of the contours, just regrassing greens, in that first year they get extremely firm. Like, I'll give you I had two instances where I experienced regrassing in my career. One in college. The college course that we played, one summer they redid all the greens, brand new greens. They didn't touch any of the fairways. And it was in Myrtle Beach, so it's kind of a wet golf course on the swampy side. It would get really wet. And so the ball would come in, and if it landed literally an inch shy of the green, it would plug, maybe spin back. It would plug. If it landed on the front edge of the green, we're talking inches. I mean, it's football here. It's a game of inches. It would bounce over the back. So you got vastly different surfaces because new greens hold a little bit firmer. So I think this week the apron, they'll handle it much better than they did at my college course at the time. The aprons will be done right, and you'll be able to play the ball up short in certain cases. But the point is, the golf course is going to be a lot firmer, and that will increase the difficulty, no question.
Well, already on a course that was the second most difficult course on the PGA Tour last season, we're ramping it up. And see, when we start to look at kind of the course key stats for this week, the model that I run, it comes out and I look at the last 12 years of data. And of course, we've got a great set of data because we've always played at Muirfield Village. And the two stats that stood out to me were around the green play and approach play, which I think sometimes can be contradictory, but also you're on a difficult course where 9 under par won it last year and it won it by 3 shots. The ability, you're either hitting a bunch of greens or you're playing from green side, which is kind of the way we saw Jon Rahm do it. His ability to get up and down, make par was a good score often. So with what you know about this course and what you have now heard and what we're expecting with some of these renovations, are you altering some of the key stats and metrics that you might be looking for to find success this week?
Not really. I'm not altering them. I mean, I'm definitely focused on approach like most people will be. And I'm definitely going to tick up the around the green game more than really I have probably all season. I mean, there might be a couple exceptions that I'm forgetting, but around the green is going to be really important to me. So, and by the way, there's a lot of bunkers on this complex. So sand saves, things of that nature are going to be important. Maybe you factor that in with overlapping with around the green. And then approach. Listen, approach in general is going to be really huge, but those proximities, I think between 150 and 200, I think those are going to be, those proximities are a little bit more than tour average in terms of Muirfield versus, again, all the other courses on the PGA Tour. So I'm going to be kind of hyper focused on those, not so much so that the percentages are way off, but I'm definitely going to be looking at those particular proximities. But yeah, approach around the green. And then as far as off the tee, I'll look at that a little bit. I mean, I think accuracy is going to come into play here like it did last week. So I'll be looking at that. And then of course, I don't factor in putting too much, but putting is definitely going to be important as well.
All right. Well, here's what we're going to do. Let's just jump right into the big board. I'm going to show the cheat sheet here from RickRunGood.com. All the tools that I flip through will be coming from my site. I like it. I hope you do too. Okay. So the $10,000 range here, Greg, I find it fascinating. Okay, we've got 10 golfers. Jordan Spieth is the most expensive golfer. He's $11,300. Our defending champion, Jon Rahm, $11,100. Bryson DeChambeau at $10,900. Rory at $10,600. Collin Morikawa at $10,400. And I can't tell you the last time that 5 guys were priced higher than Justin Thomas, but that is what we have this week, Greg. He's $10,200. And we kind of talked about this a little bit with some sports books, not knowing how to figure out and decipher between these top golfers. I think DraftKings also having a similar issue. This is a very intriguing tier we have.
I think the only thing I would do differently if it were me, like in my kind of power rankings, if you will, I think I'd be good with the first 3. I would probably switch McIlroy and Morikawa.
Ooh, okay.
And I think that would be the only change I would make if I were power ranking. So maybe there's a little bit of value with Morikawa. I imagine he's going to be extremely popular this week. People will remember that he won at this golf course as well, kind of in I guess this would be like the C rendition. This week we'll have the A because it's the newest, the most important. Then you have Muirfield of last year for the Memorial, and that's a completely different setup than what we had at the Workday. So I do think Morikawa will get a lot of action. I'm interested to hear what Sia has to say. But I do think that Spieth is the class of the field. I think he's earned that right since Waste Management. I mean, every single tournament he's played, he has lived inside the top 5. And Jon Rahm is a good putting week away from winning. He's having the best ball striking season of his career. The one concern I have with Rahm is his around the green play has kind of slipped a little bit this year, but maybe, I mean, it was better at the PGA. So maybe it's a little bit better right now than it was, say, earlier in the year. So I kind of have a funny feeling Jon Rahm's turning the corner.
I tend to think that as well, and I look at some of the places that he's found success, played much better at the PGA Championship. He played well at Torrey Pines. We know he won this event last year. He won at Olympia Fields. I just feel like when the course gets more difficult, Jon Rahm seems to rise to the top. Yeah. And it's interesting, Sia, because Greg mentioned something that I know a lot of people are going to want to look at, not only the events that we've had at Muirfield Village for the Memorial, but you throw in the one workday charity open that we had last year. So that's what I've got up on RickRunGood.com right now. And if I just sort by those two events, right, over the past 6 years, Patrick Cantlay, number 1 in strokes gained total, and that man, Colin Morikawa, number 2. Now, of course, it's only 8 rounds, but he's averaging 2.2 strokes gained per round. So to Greg's point, out of this 10K range, maybe there is a little bit of built-in value on Mr. Morikawa.
There might be. And by the way, that list you just flashed, I hope people are watching on YouTube, because we're going to talk about a guy that's on that list much later in the show.
Much later
in the show. So please stay tuned for that, because it's such an interesting thing that DraftKings decided to do with pricing of certain people here. But, so here's the thing about Colin Morikawa. I really like him. I mean, as is typical with me, I think every other time we do this show, I'm saying, hey, I'm going to skip this elite range, this 10K and above range. I'm not going to skip it, but I do like the 9K range a little bit better from a value standpoint. My one watch out for Colin Morikawa is simply the around the green game just hasn't been good. I mean, we know the putter is up and down, and I think we're willing to live with that, because we're willing to live with the fact that, hey, it's probably a 50-50 proposition. The putter might get hot and you're good to go at that point. But if we're going to emphasize around the green game here, I mean, Colin just hasn't been that good around the green. I mean, and if you look at how he's doing in the bunkers, I mean, you might expect he's not doing well there. In fact, he's doing even worse in the bunkers than he is just the generic around the green metric. So that is kind of a watch out for me, which is why, there's not a lot of guys. I mean, I like Jordan Spieth. The Jon Rahm thing, he's been a little sketchy. I mean, the new equipment has me sort of turned around a little bit. He's been a little sketchy in certain metrics. Even on approach, he's been sketchy from certain distances. I like him. If I had to pick one in this range, it would probably be Colin Morikawa, but I'm not too excited about it. And right behind Colin, I would say, is Jordan Spieth and Jon Rahm.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that leaves us with one big name, or I guess a couple of big names we haven't spent much oxygen on. Let's start with $10,900. It's Bryson DeChambeau, Greg. And here's the interesting thing. How good are we at assessing how we think Muirfield Village is going to play this week? Right? Like, how good are we at this?
I don't think we're very good right now.
Okay. As the week goes on, we'll know
As
more.
the week goes on, I think we'll get better, because we got to hear what players have to say. And I haven't heard a lot of lingo from players, how much more difficult it is. But I think it's fair to say a couple of things. One, you know what? Maybe we're better than we think. Because one, it's the same golf course architect. So we know Jack's style. We know what Jack wants you to do. We know what Jack values in challenging shots. He wants to challenge players in a specific way. So we know what that asks for. And I will say, on the Bryson front, trajectory is very important for Jack. Yeah. He asks you to hit it really high. We know he likes to set it up like a major championship, something that Mark talked about at length last night. So we do know those things. We have an idea of, what they've done with some fairways and some trees. Mm-hmm. I think those things, they all kind of give Bryson a little bit of an advantage. The one thing that I think holds Bryson back is the ability to fade his irons. He tends to draw his irons. His iron play hasn't been great, and that may be a problem, but the advantage he does have is the height. Most guys who draw the ball don't hit it as high as he does. Rory would be one exception, but it's very rare. So I think Bryson's trajectory and spin rates could give him a real advantage on a golf course like this. It's also got that thick rough, the narrow fairways, the winged foot API kind of style. So I do think there's a lot of positives about Bryson. The question is where is his game right now?
Well, that last point was what I was getting at. On paper, there is less acreage of fairway. There is more acreage of rough. Now, that could come from anywhere on the course, but if this
good
is
for Bryson,
that's great for Bryson, right? If the blueprint is more narrow fairways with thick rough, that is exactly what Bryson thrives in, because everybody's going to miss the fairway and he can hit it better out of that thick stuff than most of the guys on the PGA Tour. So that's where Bryson tends to thrive. And then, you kind of have, I think, a lot of questions around the other name that we didn't talk about, which is Rory McIlroy. Sia. Okay, so I kind of have, this is version, whatever you want to call it, 2 or 3 of Rory McIlroy, where he has the struggles. He misses the cut at the Masters. He signs on officially with a new swing coach. And now we've had 2 events, one very good. He won at Quail Hollow, and one where he finished 49th at the PGA Championship. And that, by his own standards, is not going to be good enough. So now we play the game of what do we expect from Rory McIlroy?
Yeah, it's so hard to say. I think from a DraftKings standpoint, I'm going to be willing to play Rory McIlroy, but just not in droves. I mean, obviously, you've got the first place finish, but it's buttressed against a 49th and a missed cut, and there really hasn't been much play in the last 2 months, really. The thing that worries me a little bit is his ability to keep it in the fairway. I mean, I guess the question is going to be, when we see these practice rounds and we hear the players, how thick is the rough? How problematic is it going to be? He just hasn't really been that good off the tee. I mean, obviously, from a yardage standpoint, he's great, but in terms of an accuracy standpoint, it is kind of a problem. So I do like him. I mean, every other part of his game checks out. The approach is there. The short game is there. He's a good play, but I am a little nervous about Roy. So I'll play him, but sparingly.
And then I guess we can't get out of the 10K range without talking about all but one guy, which Greg leaves us with Justin Thomas, who, I think the concern around JT is his weapon, his irons and his wedges, at least for the last couple of weeks, have been very un-JT like. Now, you could argue that a guy of his caliber is going to be able to bounce back no problem, but we're looking at the PGA Championship where he missed the cut. He was tour average with his approaches, and the Charles Schwab Challenge, in which he finished 40th. Tour average with his approaches. It's one thing when we know, Greg, that he's going to be all over the map with his putter, but when the weapon starts to go away, that's when I start to get concerned.
Yeah, and there are 2 ways to look at that. It could be a fluke, could have been a bad day, maybe he had a stiff neck. I don't know. There are a lot of reasons why somebody can have an off day. So I don't generally look into it too much, but watching him play, just the eye test, I mean, he was sculling wedges over the green. These are bizarre. He was hitting bizarre shots. And I'm kind of left in a place of wonder with that. Is that an anomaly? Does that mean that, look, that was a fluke? It was a bad day. I got a bad night's sleep. I wasn't focused. I don't know what it could be. I got in a fight with my girlfriend. I don't know what that could possibly be if you're JT, but it definitely leaves me with a lot of questions. So I'm on the fence here. Could this be solved overnight? Could this just be he's got to clear his head and get himself back to focused, and we're going to get the JT that we normally get this week? Or is there a problem going on? And so for me right now, I'm leaning towards staying away from JT because this is my horse. This is my anchor. I have a feeling the winner of this tournament is going to come from this range. And because of that, I got to stay away from JT because I don't think he's ready to go win this week.
All right. Sorry, JT. You're not making Greg's short list, which allows us to go down to the $9,000 tier, Sia. And you are already on record, my friend, as saying this is a tier you like. It starts with Victor Hovland, Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Hideki Matsuyama, Corey Connors, and it's rounded out by Tony Finau, Patrick Reed, and Scotty Scheffler. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, am I really not going to say Victor Hovland? I mean, you really have to search long and hard to find something wrong with Victor Hovland's game. I mean, you really have to really split hairs and be like, oh, okay, there's this one little thing with this sort of narrow reference point that I want to examine. I believe maybe it's 125 to 150 where he's not rating out very well. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Actually, it's 150 to 175. It looks like he doesn't rate out, amazingly. Everything else, this guy rates out really well, which is why he's 4th in my model. I mean, I genuinely think you could have put Victor Hovland in the 10K range, and I don't think anybody would have really. And by the way, in the betting market, I think he's above this range as well. So I like Victor Hovland quite a bit. Other guys I like, believe it or not, I think I might actually go back to Patrick Cantlay. I mean, he rates out really well for me here. Obviously, it looks like his game may have bounced back. I mean, with his recent form. So I'm not saying it has. I mean, we talked about this a little yesterday on the preview show where we're probably early on Patrick Cantlay if we're taking him right now, especially in this particular tournament. So I'm going to be focused on Cantlay, Victor Hovland, and believe it or not, I think I like Tony Finau this week. I'd love for you guys to sort of cheer me on there, because then that'll really kind of, support my theory. But Tony Finau rates out really well. And so I kind of like him as well.
So I'm looking at the last 24 rounds here just by strokes gained total. Victor Hovland is fourth. He's been phenomenal. It's Spieth, Morikawa, Hoffman, Victor Hovland. Those are the top four. If you look at Patrick Cantlay, the only real concern that I have left for him is the putter. He has not been able to figure it out. He's lost strokes putting in 7 straight. I could not find another instance of that in my database. So he's in the worst putting stretch of his career. You'd argue maybe it comes around at some point. But I actually do like Tony Finau this week. He's someone that, he had a couple of weird weeks in a row, and now he's starting to turn the corner again. He has a putter issue as well, but he's starting to look more like the Tony Finau before Riviera when he went to a playoff with Max Homa than the one we saw, maybe a couple of weeks ago. So Greg, I turn our attention to you for this 9K range. We've got Hideki here. We've got Corey Connors. We've got Xander. I mean, who in this range has your full attention?
Hideki. Hideki does for sure. And it's because of what we said very early on in the show. Sia pointed out, actually, Rick, you pointed out, approach and around the green. Those are the two most important things. And this is where Hideki Matsuyama excels. And so for that reason, I think he's in kind of in prime position to go out there and have a really solid week. And then you add to that his course history here, which is no surprise. He has a 6th in 2019, and he won his first attempt in 2014. I think that was his first PGA Tour win. Yeah, tied 5th in 2015. He didn't play great in 2020, Rick, but I don't think Hideki was in his best of form at that time. So, I'm looking at Hideki and I'm saying a guy who's great with the iron play. He's great with his around the green play. He's 35th for the year around the green and 19th for approach. And his form since Masters has actually not been that bad. He really had a chance at PGA. The third round probably let it get away from him. So I'm looking at Hideki as the guy in this range.
I tend to agree with you, Greg. He's been very good. And the other part I love about it is he is never owned on DraftKings. I'm looking at his historic ownership here. In his last 8 starts, he has cracked the double digits one time. He was 10.7% owned at the Players' Championship. The last 4 weeks, 5%, 6%, 7%, 3%. The guy, nobody ever plays him. It's amazing stuff.
No, he's the Masters champion, right? I mean, but he's a low key. Typically, guys like that, I'll give a couple of weeks. Like they're not going to win again anytime soon. It's too big of a deal. But for Hideki, I don't know. It feels like he's taking kind of an under the radar approach, at least here in America.
He was going to win the PGA Championship. I'm sure of it. He was going to win the PGA Championship, except for like that 4-hole stretch that he had. I think it was on Saturday. And it was just like, he was awesome. He played 68 holes. Awesome.
He did. I completely agree. So I think he's set up for another great week this week.
The bottom of this range, see Patrick Reed and Scotty Scheffler, 2 guys coming off missed cuts at Fort Worth, which used to be a bigger deal for ownership, but Patrick Reed did it in a way that was pretty ugly. He shot a horrible Friday, I think it was a 75, and he missed a 5-footer for par on his last hole, and everybody saw it, which I know impacts people. And Scotty Scheffler was arguably maybe the most popular guy who missed the cut last week. He's an even 9,000. Now, there were a ton of 6 of 6 lineups, but what do you think the industry does around these 2 guys coming off of early weeks?
Yeah, I think it's going to be low ownership. So I think if you were going to do a contrarian play or make a contrarian play, I'd probably do it with Scotty Scheffler, in spite of the fact that last week, I mean, he lost strokes on approach. I mean, it's not exactly the recipe, but we know how he can pile up DraftKings points. And when the ball striking is in form, he can absolutely contend. The thing about Patrick Reed, just the metrics don't match up, which is why I haven't really been on him this entire year. I mean, I'm actually a Patrick Reed fan. I like playing him. I like him kind of being in a range where he's always sort of contrarian. I also like betting his outright number because there's usually some value on it, but I don't think I can take him among some of these guys in the 9K range. So I'm absolutely off Patrick Reed. I might play a little Scheffler just to be different, but I'm a fan of neither of those two this week.
Okay, fair enough. There is some intriguing options down in the 8K range. And then, of course, we've got to get to the value. And there's one guy very much near the bottom that we're going to have a discussion about. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. $8,000 range, fairly small. It starts with Sam Burns, who's coming off a withdrawal at the PGA Championship. We're going to have to talk about that. Joaquin Niemann, Matt Fitzpatrick, Cam Smith, Louis Oosthuizen, Shane Lowry. And then, Greg, it wraps with Charlie Hoffman, who's been unbelievable, Sung J M, Billy Horschel, Keegan Bradley, and Ricky Fowler. Hit it, Jacob.
Ricky Fowler.
Yes.
Nice. Pretty good time.
That's my favorite one. Every time I hear his name now, I say that in my mind. And
Ricky Fowler. I can't say it without it. I can't say that or playoffs. Playoffs.
Yeah.
Playoffs.
That's great.
Same deal. Okay, so in this range, let's get started with, this is a little bit of maybe a contrarian range, right? You get the big boys. You're looking up top. You got your pick of the litter. You can take guys that actually have great short games and great approach games. You can kind of match exactly what the course asks for to the player. You can find your guys in there. This range, I think you got to start making a couple of sacrifices one way or another. So first guy that I like is Matt Fitzpatrick.
Right.
One, I think he plays this style of golf course really, really well. Two, I think he's having a great year. One of the best of his career, maybe the best. He was tied 23rd at the PGA, and he had a really nice run before that miscut at the Byron Nelson, which I think was kind of an overrated. He took a little bit of time off from RBC Heritage to the Byron Nelson and then missed the cut. I think he's going to come in ready to go. And he's gaining approaching the green this year. He's 89th on tour, which isn't great, but he's 44th around the green and he's 16th strokes gained putting. And he had a great run here last year. He was third last year in this event. But more so than just that, he also played great at the BMW Championship last year. He played great at the API. I believe that was this year, and I have it right here.
Yeah,
tied 10th at the API, 9th at the Players. Right, these hard courses he plays great.
Yeah, and I think before if you want to talk about other guys, that's fine. But I want to jump in here on Matt Fitzpatrick because what I don't think people realize, Greg, is how good he's been off the tee. Because you're never like, oh, Matt Fitzpatrick, absolute bomber. He's just kind of sneaky longer than you think he is, and he hits a ton of fairways. So he has now gained strokes off the tee in every event since Riviera. That was like 9 or 10 events ago for him. And you look at his results on hard courses. You were mentioning it. It's the 5th at Riviera. It's the 11th at Workday. The concession was a beast. 10th at API. 9th at the Players Championship. I mean, the guy just shows up.
Yeah, it offers his style of play, and he said this before too. He likes when it's difficult because you got to play a little bit differently. You got to think. Finding fairways becomes a little bit more valuable. Of course, there are other ways around it. You can play the Bryson style and do that, but you don't have to go out there and make a birdie on every hole, right? You got to think your way around the golf course a little bit, and it's something that Matt Fitzpatrick's really, really good at. So for that reason, I'm a big fan of Matt Fitzpatrick this week.
Okay.
And then a couple other guys in this range. I think they're going to be really popular, and I'm sure that they're in Sia's models as well. But Charlie Hoffman and Keegan Bradley. Like are they, I'll ask you guys, are they like in the too good to be true category? Are they a little overpopular this week? Is there a problem? Because I can't find a problem with Charlie Hoffman. I can't find a reason not to play him other than can he really do it again?
There's not a reason. Yeah, there's not a reason not to play him. I mean, I looked because Greg, I agree with you that I was kind of almost looking for, okay, when is it going to finally break down for Charlie Hoffman? He's striking it too well. Rick, sorry to interrupt.
No, I was just going to illustrate the same thing. I mean, so this is the last 24 rounds, strokes gained approach. Number 1 in this field is Colin Morikawa. Number 2 is Charlie Hoffman. If you go to tee to green, Charlie Hoffman is behind only Colin Morikawa and Jordan Spieth. Keegan Bradley's like 8th or 9th on this list. I mean, it is what these guys are doing. fantasy people understand it, right? They're playing them constantly every single week because they're in the low 8,000 range and they're ball striking the heck out of it, and they're doing really good things. So I don't know what the argument is outside of they're going to be popular.
Yeah, I mean, even I guess you could make a course history argument. He missed the last two cuts in 19 and in 18. He doesn't really have a great record here. No top 10s, only one top 25 in 2014. But he didn't have a great record at Colonial either. So I kind of feel like he's just playing well enough to outplay the fact that he may not love the course, may not love the setup. I think he's hitting it too good. So yeah, I'm definitely on Team Hoffman this week.
He's Team Charlie. He's a huge. We're gonna have shirts for every single player on the PGA Tour. We should have got one that says Team No Putt. What are we thinking? That would have been.
Yeah. Yes, that's an obvious one.
An obvious one. See, I think that if you're going to pivot off these guys, the natural pivot is probably Billy Horschel. So Horschel in his last 5 starts at Muirfield Village has 3 top 13 finishes. He's playing well. We know he won the match play. He played well at the Zurich. He's kind of this grinders mentality. Is he the most natural pivot of these guys in the low 8s?
Yeah, I think the most natural pivot for me is probably Louis and Shane Lowry. I like, especially if this course plays as hard as we think it might. And again, we'll find out as the week goes and as some practice rounds get in. But I really like Louis. I mean, if you break him down over the last 24 rounds, he's great. If you actually scale it even up to 12 rounds, he's even better. So he's really on an upward trajectory, I think. I agree with the Matthew Fitzpatrick call, and he's not a pivot per se, but he's definitely a guy that I like, especially if the conditions are tough. But yeah, I like Fitzpatrick. I like Louis. I guess with Billy Horschel, I mean, what you just flashed on the screen, it was pretty impressive, not just the recent history, but the course history here. So I might have to mine a little bit deeper there, but my guys in this range are Fitzpatrick, of course, Hoffman and Keegan Bradley. And again, speaking of upward trajectory, if you break it down from 24 to 12 with those two guys, it's really great too. But I think Louis might be the pivot for me, or Shane Lowry.
So, okay, a lot to unwrap there. Billy Horschel, just to put a bow on him, if you go back to just the Muirfield Village storyline, he is basically the 3rd best player in this field historically if you have at least 20 rounds. So that's where Billy Horschel pops up. And to put a bow on Louis Forcia, if you go to the last 12 rounds, that's what I'm showing on the screen right now. The 3 best players, Sam Burns, which maybe we should talk about what the heck we're going to do with Sam Burns. Mm-hmm. Sam Burns, Victor Hovland, and then Louis Oosthuizen is number 3. Keegan is number 4. Jordan Spieth is number 5. So, Greg, I'll turn our attention for Sam Burns to you. He is coming off of a win, a runner-up, I believe it was 4th at the Zurich with Billy Ho, and then he played I think he played 6 holes at the PGA Championship and withdrew and cited a back injury.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem here, right? Does any of that stuff matter? Or because an injury can really throw you off your rhythm. So you're right. He has a win, a second, and only plays a couple of holes at PGA. I'm sure that crushed a lot of lineups.
It did.
Yeah, it did. I'm sure it crushed a couple of yours, right? Yeah, 15% owned, right? Not surprising, and it should be that way. He's coming off a win at yeah, you got to play Sam Burns, but where are we with the injury? Is he nicked up? Is he hurt at all? I mean, I think I'm a fade on Sam Burns. One, that is a big question mark for me. And the other reason is he has played here twice and he shot 81 twice. He's played 4 rounds here, right? 2 of them, half the time he shot 81. So he's got 2 81s and he's got a 73 and a 71. That doesn't. I know this is a different player we're talking about now, but because of the injury and because of the course history, I'm a little more skittish on Sam Burns.
One thing, Rick, real quick, that I wanted to point out, because I don't want to lose this thought, because we have been emphasizing around the green game. In this 8K range, there are 4 guys within the top 15 in around the green game over the last 24 rounds. Maybe you want a bigger sample size for this particular metric, maybe not. But over the last 24 rounds, Keegan Bradley is 8th, Louis 11th, Lowry, I believe, is 15th, and Ricky Fowler makes an appearance as well. I don't know if we want to talk about him, but the point is, when you're talking about Keegan and you're talking about guys like Charlie Hoffman, you want to analyze it, I guess, from all different aspects. I mean, I think people would be surprised that Keegan's in the top 10 around the green, and obviously Louis and Lowry doesn't shock me that they're up there as well.
Yeah, I was already loading up Ricky Fowler because I guess we have to talk about this. So he got his first
Fowler.
Yeah.
got his first. I paused because I thought he was gonna hit it, and then I didn't. And then he got me because I didn't know how long to wait. The top 10 that he had at the PGA Championship, Greg, was his first top 10 since last year's American Express. That's in like January. We're talking about. That's 16 months. That's 16 months of golf between top 10s. Are we magically now going to say, all right, he's back, or I've got to see more?
For me personally, I've got to see more. But from a DFS standpoint, maybe you could take a flyer on Ricky Fowler. Sia, what do you think about his ownership? Because I definitely have some analysis here, but I want to know what you think his ownership will be. Is it going to be overly inflated this week?
If you want to go out and win $1 million with a single bullet, you pivot off of Keegan Bradley, the free square, which people are going to call him that. You pivot off Charlie Hoffman at 8,300, the free square, and you play Ricky Fowler. So my thought there is, if you want to play him in this giant tournament and you want to throw, a couple bullets in the chamber, and instead of 150 max, you want to throw 2. Guys like Ricky Fowler should be in your lineup, not Keegan Bradley and Charlie Hoffman. So if it's a single entry or 3 max, I'm happy to play the chalk in those particular circumstances. But Ricky, I don't think the ownership is going to be high because of who else is there.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's good analysis. So in that case, these are at the PGA Championship. It's not just that he came in tied 8th, okay? Because there are a number of factors that go into why somebody does well. And when you get on a place like Kiowa Island, the ocean course, it's a little bit like an open championship. Right? Padraig Harrington comes in tied 4th. If Padraig Harrington was in this field, I don't think we would be playing him. So just to kind of put that in perspective, there's a lot of ways to get it done on a windy, firm, challenging major championship style golf course. But Ricky Fowler was 17th, approaching the green, and he was, I think he was like 4th in the field putting. He had a great putting week. He had great approach, a great iron play week. And those are the things that were plaguing Ricky Fowler in this massive gap between top 10s. So I am optimistic about maybe a little improvement in iron play, maybe a little improvement in putting. The question I have is, how does he get to that number of 17th approaching the green last week? Because he only hit, he didn't hit more than 13 greens in a round. So he had a round where he only hit 8 greens. So is he really striking it well, or was the ball striking just really tough for everybody? So there are a lot of questions floating about me, but I would say the overwhelming positive is that he had an uptick in iron play and in putting.
And to emphasize Greg's point, Padraig Harrington is in this field, and we aren't playing him. So that was a perfect little note there, Greg.
Yeah, there you go. See, I didn't even know it, and I should know it. I mean, I'm a huge Padraig fan, but You're really surprised that he came in tied 4th last week. We're not saying Padraig's on the way to, contending at the Memorial. I don't think that's our thought process at this point. Maybe we're wrong.
I think we're right. But I always think we're right until Sunday evening, and then we find out that we are wrong.
So hopefully it's not Friday evening.
That's true. That's actually very true. The $7,000 range, gentlemen. Adam Scott, Gary Woodland at the top. It goes all the way down to, oh boy, K.H. Lee, Cam Davis, but by the way, both of those now have officially changed their name in the PGA database, which is like, it's tough for data. If you're dealing with data, it's tough. So Cam Davis is now Cam Davis instead of Cameron Davis, and K.H. Lee going by the initials. They're both down there at 7,000. Sia, Carlos Ortiz, CH3, Aaron Wise. Who's moving the needle for you in the 7K range?
So this is such a big pool of players, and I like a lot of them. So I really have to kind of reel it in a little bit. So I'm going to sort of gloss over a couple of names. I do like Gary Woodland. I played him last week, as you guys know, and that worked out. I don't love him this week, but I do like him. Emiliano Grillo, I always like. At this price, I still think Emiliano Grillo is being priced fairly. Obviously the short game can catch him up, but he also has upside there too. Cameron Tringale, I want to point out, just because his around the green game is really good. He's definitely one of the better guys on tour around the green. But guys I think I really like are Stuart Sink, for one. I like him. Doug Ghim, believe it or not, he actually gained with the putter last week. I'm not saying he found something necessarily, but the ball striking is so good with Doug Ghim that if he can be positive with the putter, I think you're in really good shape there. I think the price is right to take a chance on him here and there. Lucas Glover jumps out to me. I think this is a better course for Matt Jones than last week. I said last week, I wasn't really on Matt Jones. I didn't think it was the best course fit. I think this is a little bit better. And by the way, he's number one in the field last 24 rounds around the green, so he's going to be comfortable there. The last guy I'll mention is Charles Schwartzel. I mean, obviously, his last time out wasn't great, but he's been in really, really good form. Oh, one other guy I really like who rates out surprisingly well in my model, doesn't have many deficiencies, Aaron Wise. I like him, and I've clicked that button at 125-1 at William Hill for him to win it all. Why not, right?
Why not, right? All right, I've got a couple of nuggets from that. So Cameron Tringale, I think I'm looking at the last 24 rounds right now. As Sia mentioned, one of the better around the green players. He is third. If you look at Doug Ghim, he is consistently one of the better tee to green players in the field, one of the better ball strikers in the field, but he's constantly a loser with the flat stake. He straightens that out for 4 days at the Charles Schwab Challenge, and he finished 14th. And I don't think I had another nugget. So Greg, I'm going to turn the 7,000 range over to you, my friend, and let's see what we can find.
Boy, big range here. And I think Sia hit a lot of names that I had written down. So one name I wrote down was Gary Woodland. I think he could be a really solid play this week. Cameron Tringale, who you just mentioned, I think is a really solid play. He's just so well-rounded in his game. He's really solid approaching the green, off the tee, around the green, as you mentioned. And he's 34th on tour for the year, strokes gained putting. So I look at him as a guy who's a real good option. It kind of seems like a safe play, even though he did what he did at the PGA Championship. So another guy that I'm kind of... All right, so what I have left, there are 3 guys I have left. One of them is a big question mark. Curious to get your thoughts. One of them I feel really confident about, but I'm guessing that this is another one of the Ricky Fowler type, hey, if you want to win $1 million, you put this guy in your lineup, and it's Bubba Watson. So Bubba Watson missed the cut at the he made the cut at PGA, but he didn't play very well.
Finished like dead last after that.
80th.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, not a course I would imagine would be a Bubba course. But he was 18th at the Wells Fargo. He was 13th at the Valspar, 26th at the Masters. He's had a number of events this year that have kind of surprised me, where on non-Bubba courses, he's actually done okay. PGA is an exception, but again, I'd probably rather he had missed the cut there. But anyway, it is what it is. So what has Bubba done here at the Memorial? It hasn't been all that bad. He was 32nd last year. He was tied 6th in 2017. He has a 3rd place finish in 2014. Of course, that was a great year for him. But I think Bubba Watson is playing some really good golf and is worth a look. And if he gets near the top of the leaderboard, he could be really advantageous in your lineup. What are your thoughts on that, Rick?
I like Bubba. I think that what we're seeing from him is kind of a return to the good version of Bubba, which is him consistently gaining off the tee. That should be the built-in floor with Bubba, is that he's going to gain you 3, 4, 5 strokes off the tee. That's the floor. The question marks are going to be the putter, as always. He seems to always struggle with pace. I don't know if it's pace and line, but it's actually hard to watch at times. And then I guess what we're seeing from him more recently is he's starting to find his irons. He's starting to find those wedges. He's starting to find the approach game a little bit more. Now, it was ugly at the PGA Championship, but when you get to a course that's that difficult, I'm willing to write off a lot of things. And we've seen that this has been basically dating back to the end of 2020, a pretty good stretch of golf for Bubba. So I'm not usually a Bubba guy off of those 3 or 4 courses that we think are good fits for him, but I'm starting to gain a lot of traction on him.
Yeah, and I think if he can he's one of those guys that can hit a really high percentage of greens in regulation. And it takes the pressure in an event like this where you're not going to have to get to 20 under. At least it doesn't seem that way right now. No.
if somebody gets to 20 under, oh my God, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I think so. I really think so. I mean, maybe they get a little bit of rain and it softens up the place, and at that point, if it's wet, you can get to 20 under on any course. But this one, I don't think you're going to have to make that many birdies. So if Bubba can drive it really well and hit a lot of greens of regulation, I think you can have a player there that can make a ton of pars, take advantage of par fives, and shoot some really good scores. So he's interesting to me. The other guy on my list is Kevin Streelman, who just seems to be popping up, but he hasn't gotten it done on Sundays, which is a little bit of a concern to me, but I don't mind the price here. I think Streelman is kind of in a very solid price range, and he's played some good golf. 20th at the Charles Schwab, 8th at the PGA. But again, you look at these last three, he was 26th at the Wells Fargo as well, but 72, 75, 72 on Sundays. And the RBC Heritage, he shot 73. He was also in the mix there. Is there a Sunday problem with Kevin Streelman, or is he worth maybe taking a chance on again?
What I like about Streelman is he has a pretty good history at Muirfield Village too. His last 6 years is what I'm showing on the screen right now. He's never missed a cut. 4 of them are top 18s. His best finish in 2019 was a 4th place finish. Seems to be getting at least more comfortable being on the first page of the leaderboard now with, let's call it 3 straight top 25s. His history, at least in the last 5 years, is much more reminiscent of Matt Kuchar, but he's playing better than Kuchar right now. So I think it's a pretty good stab in this mid $7,000 price range.
Okay, that's good. All right, so one last guy in this range, who I think is a lot of potential value. If you're going to stay away from a Cam Davis or an Aaron Wise and you're looking for a pivot from there, Taylor Gooch, I think, is a really well-rounded player. Yeah. Who just came in 14th at the Charles Schwab. He's having a really consistent year. He was 44th at the PGA, 39th at the Byron Nelson, 26th at the Wells Fargo. He came in 5th all the way back at the Players. This is kind of a year I was expecting a little bit of a breakout year for Taylor Gooch this year, and I don't think we've gotten the breakout year, but I do think we've gotten a much improved year. So he's again another well-rounded player.
Whatever his result was at Riviera was kind of better than it seemed. He was in the group with Max Homa, which I think was the second to last group on Sunday. So he was right in the mix. He didn't really play particularly well. Yeah, which it was because it was a bad Sunday, but otherwise he played well for 3 rounds around a very difficult Riviera. So always good to know about that as well. Let's pop down to the 6K range and Sia. I mean, we've kind of been hyping this up the whole time. There's a guy way down in the 6. Should we just start there? Do we just scroll all the way down?
You want to start?
Can I guess?
Sure.
You guys have been talking. I completely missed it.
You're going to be able to guess it because, well, I don't want to give it away. But
don't give it away. But I already know. I know I got it. He's at 6,100?
Yes.
Yeah, Kyle Stanley.
Yeah, it's Kyle Stanley. And
is this the Vincent Whaley of this year? Because, by the way, tied 20th for Vincent Whaley last week. The jinx didn't work. Our jinx failed. He was a very safe 6,200.
The whale is incapable of being jinxed. He is too good. He is too good. Vincent Whaley was 6,200 last week. Depending on the contest you were in, he was either 13% owned or 26% owned. He was very popular, but he got the job done. And Sia, again, I mean, listen, I don't know what we do with these guys. This is going to burn us eventually. But when you start scrolling down the list and you start to get below $6,500, and these guys have missed 80 and 90% of their last 10 cuts, and you're scrolling and you see a guy named Kyle Stanley at 6,100 who's coming off a top 10, who has 4 straight top 40s, who has a 6th and a 2nd in his last 3 trips to this. Like, what do we do? He's going to be popular, but do we just have to plug him?
Yes. This is the This is the whale play from this week. You like that? You see what I did there, guys? Yeah. No, I think you have to play him. That doesn't mean you have to play. It's not lock button. You don't play him in every single lineup. I mean, just like Whaley, I think he was somewhere in most tournaments, somewhere between like 12 and 20%. And I think that's fair. And I think that's kind of good news, bad news. I mean, it's not like everybody is going to be playing Kyle Stanley. Not everybody played Whaley, but if you played him, you were really gaining on the field quite a bit. So I think Stanley is not a must play, but yet you have to throw him in some lineups.
Isn't it weird that because Whaley made the cut and finished 20th last week, now everyone will be much more comfortable playing Stanley? Like if Whaley missed two completely different guys who do not have any impact on one another at all. If Whaley would have missed the cut last week, we'd be avoiding Kyle Stanley because it's like this feels like the same exact thing.
Go ahead. Real quick, what's really funny about that is that you're right. And I wonder if the percentage will be higher because, I mean, Kyle Stanley hasn't exactly done what Vince Whaley did from a made cut standpoint, but I'm actually considering pivots in this range. That's the funny part that I'm actually like Russell Knox is here, guys. Yes, he missed the cut. He let some people down, including myself. But last week, I believe he was 7,300. He's still been very good on approach. Like, it's just funny that I'm even making the argument that, hey, if you want to pivot off the 6,100 chalk in Kyle Stanley, go to Russell Knox. I mean, it's just ridiculous to say, but I think both of those guys are in play.
It's so hard for me to. I don't understand this. He came in tied 8th last week
too. Well, you know what I think the issue. Well, no, because I guess it wasn't an issue because he was a late add to this field, but he's in the first run of pricing, so they knew what they were getting themselves into. I don't.
He's got.
Greg called it a glitch last week. It feels like a glitch this week too.
I don't understand how this can. Is this just like a design to get people to get everybody? Like, is this like a freebie down at the bottom that they're giving us so that I don't understand? I don't understand it. I must be missing something.
Greg, let me add a layer of perspective here because I think this is actually important to understand. Like, is this a real price? I mean, is it a price we should actually associate with a Kyle Stanley type? Okay. The guys that are 7,400, Charles Schwartzel and Matt Kuchar on William Hill are at 100 to 1. 7,400 Matt Kuchar and Charles Schwartzel are 100 to 1. Guess who else is 100 to 1?
Kyle Stanley.
Kyle Stanley. So like you can call it a glitch, you can call it whatever you want, but he is clearly not in the class of these guys in the 6K range altogether. I mean, if I was trying to put a fair price on him, I'd say 7,100, 7,200, something like that. But the point is, William Hill and most of the sportsbooks, I'm guessing, have him ranked with a Matt Kuchar, with a Charles Schwartzel, who we've already discussed are pretty good plays this week.
Well, we know
he lost in a playoff. He made 4 birdies in a row to lose to get into a playoff 3 years ago. He just came in tied 8th last week. He's made 4 cuts in a row. This is a complete glitch. And I thought Vincent Whaley was safe last week. This may be.
Don't say it.
Okay.
Go ahead, say it. The greatest play
even
ever.
Safer. This is the safest. I could say it confidently. This is the safest $6,100 play in DraftKings PGA Tour golf history. And last week was the safest $6,200. So I love the play this week. Unless there's something they know we don't. He's hurt and he hasn't told anybody about it. I mean, this doesn't make any sense on paper.
The rest of the $6,000 range also exists, and I scroll up a little bit, and I see a guy at 6,800 named Alex Noren, who also has been on this kind of consistent cut-making streak. 5 events in a row he's made the weekend. 4 of them were top 25s. His most recent finish was a 55th at the PGA Championship. And when you start talking about difficult golf courses that you might need to rely on your short game, Alex Noren starts coming to mind for me.
Yeah, I like it. And he rates out pretty well. I think he has some upside, at least I would say at least top 20 upside. I mean, over the last 24 rounds, he's been a little sketchy on some of the more like the shorter approach shots, which I think is interesting. But those proximities we've also talked about, 150 to 175, 175 to 200, he's top 10 in both of those. So, I mean, you're getting a little bit of good and a little bit of bad on approach, but everything else rates out pretty well. I mean, around the green, he's very good. With the putter, he's very good compared to the field. Greens in regulation, he's average. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty smart play.
All right, who else, Sia, in the 6K range might be an option for you?
Yeah, so we discussed 2 that I like, which were, of course, Russell Knox and Stanley. I'll give out a couple more. I don't love this range, but there's definitely some potential gold. I think Danny Lee is interesting. You know, I understand I might be sort of chasing points here. I mean, he was pretty good last week. But Danny Lee, I mean, even back, if you date it back a couple of years ago, you know, Danny Lee was competing in some of these tournaments, and he just sort of fell off the radar. So I think in the 6K range, if you're trying to be super different, I think Danny Lee is decent. The only other guy I want to point out is I feel almost bad that I'm pointing him out because he's Greg's guy. Adam Hadwin is in the 6K range. I think he's 6,700, and he's been playing very well. Greg, first to market on Adam Hadwin. It was probably 2 months ago he started talking about him, and the game's really coming around.
Early, but it is coming around. It is. I'll give you that.
It's coming around. I mean, 8th place last week, made cut at the PGA. He has, not great course history here, but he has got some good course history.
And he got the juices flowing early on Thursday, which I liked last week. It always makes you feel good when, you see your guy when you wake up, you first check the leaderboard and he's 4 under through 6. So we got off to a good start last week, which is cool.
Speaking of early starts, Danny Lee will be winning this golf tournament Thursday morning at 7:34 Eastern. He'll be in like 50th an hour later, but he will be winning this tournament. I assume he's always has an early Thursday tee time. He always goes out and makes 3 birdies right away, and then you worry about the rest of the week. But he is always that guy when I wake up.
I'll have a first round leader sweat for like 7 minutes. Just like last week, I don't know if you saw my post. I had Vincent Whaley and Kyle Stanley as first round leaders, and they were kind of like tied for second about 2 hours into their first round, and it didn't work out.
And then who was it? Spieth and Sergio got it done.
Sergio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was great.
Anybody else, gentlemen, in the $6,000 range?
Yeah, I got an interesting guy. So Stanley's the safe play, right? You're gonna play. Yeah, you're gonna go with Stanley. I mean, he's my favorite guy, regardless of price, in the 6K range. Like if you took, obviously there is pricing involved because it's the 6K range, but from 6,900 down to min price, he's my favorite in the range.
Okay.
I am not averse to a guy named Danny Willett. Which is a much more risky pick, a much more 6K-ish type play. Now, Danny Willett came in 64th at the PGA Championship, but he did come in 11th at the British Masters. He was 18th at the RBC Heritage. So he's kind of had this like every other tournament thing going on where he's performed pretty well. And he's done well at Muirfield Village. He's only played here twice. He was tied 27th in 19 and tied 32nd in 2020. So, and by the way, in 2020, he shot 82 on Sunday, which was a really tough day. If you remember last year, he was right there in the mix. So I give Danny Willett a little bit of a chance. I may throw a flyer at him in my non-Kyle Stanley lineups. Maybe that's just line up. I may get one share of Danny Willett in there.
All right.
Rick, if I could throw just 2 other guys in there that I think are worth considering. They're both Rick Gehman specials, actually. Lonto Griffin, who again, he's under 7K, and Brandon Steele at 6,500.
Lonto has not been good, unfortunately. Steele, I think, is a lot more interesting because, yes, he made the cut at the PGA, didn't play well after that. Yeah, he made the cut at Quail Hollow, didn't play particularly well after that. But when you compare him to his peers, he's made more cuts than a lot of the guys priced in the same way. And he's had a couple of top 20s recently at Muirfield Village. He would have been the one guy, of course, that I would have pointed out because he's one of my guys.
He's your Team Steele, another
Team Steele. I'm gonna have a closet full of soon. All right, gentlemen, that was fun. That was your DFS preview. We have a mega preview pod coming out on Tuesday. We have round by round recaps after every single round's conclusion or almost conclusion, depending on how slow they're playing. Sometimes we get out here and we hop on a few minutes early, but I think that'll do it. Anything else?
I just wanted to say that I'm Team Brooks as well. That's it.
Yeah, I have to pull the numbers. I want to see how many people ordered Team Brooks shirts and how many people ordered Team Bryson shirts. That'll tell the real story. And people put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, I like that, Rick. I think I'm sitting on Bryson Island, all by myself. It seems. But anyway, I want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day. Freedom isn't free, so very grateful for all that we have. Grateful I get to work with you boys on every week on a golf podcast like this. Very grateful.
There you go. I can't top that. So we're going to end the show right now. Let me thank producer Jacob. He does all the hard work behind the scenes. Let me thank Sia Nejad, who you can find at Sia Nejad. That's Greg DuCharme. You can find him at The Real GFD, and you can find me at RickRunGood. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.